After hundreds of rounds and tens of thousands of kills totaling over 20 hours in the Black Ops 7 Zombies Beta, I have some good things and some pretty bad things to say. And I do want to start talking about the good things just to get them out of the way so we can get to the real meat of this video, and that is the feedback and things that they could do better. So starting with the good, this map, this little farm cutout is stunning. Whether I'm playing it, whether I'm editing a video for it, I get distracted by the skybox. I love the atmosphere and the colors and how they make you feel within this map. The barn is really warm, the house is really warm, and then you go up to the second story and it's exposed to this dark ether. As you're running around the map, you get this really unnerving atmosphere. Like, it's this farmhouse, yes, but it's in a place that it's not supposed to be. You often get the feeling that we're not supposed to be here. It's got a great Pack-a-Punch camo. I love Chompy. The trap is fantastic. It's again very in line with what Zombies has been, sort of like the Monkey Bomb, where it's this little doll and it's got some spooky voice lines, but also this really upbeat music. I think it fits in just nicely. And of course, Farm has a pretty good training spot. Lots of people saying this is too wide open and it's too big. It's a very common criticism of modern zombies, but you also have to consider super sprinters. Once super sprinters start coming in, boy, this map doesn't feel so big. Other good additions, I loved playing with Wisp T. I'm very excited to use that as part of my arsenal. Toxic Growth, if you're a fan of the channel, you know how long I've been championing the inclusion and the bringing back of Toxic Growth, and I'm so happy it's here. I think it works so well with the mechanics. I love the sandbox that it creates. And Fireworks looks fun. It works completely differently than it did in Black Ops 3, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the augments for it. Other map specific things, I do want to praise them for the Zursas and the Ravagers. The Ravagers are overall really fun. I love how they interact with the things on the ground. They eat up your equipment, but then you can also take that and use it to your advantage to get more salvage out of it. They are very threatening as a pact. I love their sounds, their animations. I love the little Easter egg with the monkey symbols. The only piece of feedback is that I think they might be just slightly too difficult, but we also don't have any augments in this beta, so that could just be me not having the right stamina up augments or PhD slider or whatever. I like how threatening they are. I love how they demand your attention. I love how those max ammo rounds are not a guaranteed win. The Zursa, on the other hand, I think is going to be one of my favorite boss zombies ever created. It's got a nice array of attacks. It's got a slash that will damage you over time very slightly. I love that it shoots bees at you. I love that it has the weak spots as the beehives, and then when you shoot off the weak spot, it actually drops the beehive on the ground. I love how you can destroy the beehives, and hopefully, I imagine Environmentalist will help you slide through the beehive damage, and you can pair that with Tribologist now, since we have two minor augments to really counterbalance that. I love the fact that this is a bear in this big, huge open map. When you're running away from Zursa and then you turn around and he's right there, you feel like you're being attacked by a bear. I love the way it makes me feel. I love how when you shoot off one of its beehives, it enters in this like stun state, so you can really take advantage of it. I think it is so well balanced, at least for the first 50 rounds or so. It is a little bit of a bullet sponge, but that might be the weapons, and we'll talk about that. But the one thing that I do think might need changing with the Zursa is the damage scaling. I've seen a lot of clips of the Zursa being able to like two-shot you even with armor, and that is a no-go for me. I don't like that at all. So hopefully they're keeping an eye on damage scaling for zombies and Zursa especially. Some smaller things I liked the mystery box changes. It felt great not to have streaks or melees in there. I loved having ether tools in there and getting rid of the lower rarities. It made the mystery box feel actually useful to spin, like you're actually going to get something good. Although, like I said before, I still think if you want to encourage players to spin the mystery box, especially in the mid to late game, salvage and rarity is not the true bottleneck. That would be points. Now, if you're also a fan of the channel, you know that I'm a pretty big defender of the new point system in some ways, and so I don't think going back to the classic point system is going to be the end-all be-all fix for this, but I don't want to get too in the weeds about that topic here. Now, big change that I like is the change to the melee system, specifically getting 150 points per headshot if you melee them. This adds depth, this adds strategy, especially to the early game of getting a lot of early game points, and especially now with Melee Macchiato and that one augment that gets you more points, Melee Macchiato might be a really big perk to buy earlier on than we did in Black Ops 6. They did also say that Melee Macchiato sort of changed up how the punch feels. I don't have much experience with that, but I'm looking forward to that. There are really tiny random changes that I like. I like the fact that max ammo refills your equipment. I thought this would be too strong, but with these salvage changes, I think this is actually quite balanced perfectly, and it gives more value to that max ammo, which is always fun. I strangely really like wall jumping. I don't really think much of it even right now. It seems pretty impractical, but it was really fun. I really hope they add in secret jumps and spots. Like in the beta, you couldn't jump through the barn window unless you opened the door. I would like that to be changed to where you could keep the door closed if you were able to wall jump into it. I think that would be a great way of adding depth and strategy to the map design itself. I'm also really looking forward to the PhD augments that create explosions by the wall jump and just dropping from a distance. I think that could be really fun, and I really hope they add in Easter eggs when it comes to wall jumping. They added in Easter eggs in Modern Warfare Zombies in the Dark Ether that had to do with like the Scorcher and parkouring around the map, so hopefully they can kind of carry that on into here with this wall jumping mechanic. The armor wall buy was good. I think it would be even better if we didn't start with any armor, and especially now that the armor wall buy is in the same location and it ranks up as you go. I'd love to spawn in without armor and then just have the first tier of armor be like 1,000 points or something. Create a little bit early game vulnerability. I think that'd be awesome. The new Exfil is decent. I love that it's per person instead of the whole lobby. I like the extra challenge that you're restricted within this one zone. I like the fact that you can enter Exfil from across the map instead of just one point. I wonder if we're going to be able to cheese Exfils a little bit easier now, but Exfils really weren't all that difficult before. I like the intensity. You can keep spawning in zombies for the entire duration, kind of like a mix between the Modern Warfare Zombies Exfil and the Black Ops 6 Exfil. I think it's really well done. A small thing I almost forgot was I like the fact that like Turned and Wisp T will not turn the rounds anymore if you only have one zombie. That might finally make me run Turn for once. That is a phenomenal change. I am pretty mixed on the random drops. I need to study this further and get some actual data on it. What I like about the random drops, and if you don't know, like max ammos, insta kills, double points, bonus points, they used to be part of a cycle where you would get at least one of those things before you got any other one again, similar to the Gobblegum cycle. But now I think they made this completely random. So there's like no cap to it. You can get as many drops as you get lucky, I guess. I think I dislike it from a strategic standpoint, but I like it from an emotional standpoint because it makes those drops even more valuable. When you see an insta kill or a double points or a max ammo, it's even better. Like, oh my goodness, yes, it's been so long. So it kind of adds value to that, especially with how easy Modern Zombies is. With the health cap and the guns being viable on high rounds, hopefully. With the ammo crates, you can always buy more armor from the crafting table. So I like that it emphasizes these drops being more important now. But I reserve the right to change my mind because I do really like the drop cycle and that strategy too, especially for like speedrunning and high rounds and stuff. But that brings us to by far the single best change that I think has been made in Black Ops 7 Zombies, apart from the augment changes, which we didn't get to play with. These high rounds are the closest high rounds we've gotten to being perfect, if you ask me. They have reduced the super sprinters. They have finally, after nearly a decade, reduced the boss zombie spam. Ever since Zetsubou no Shima, nearly every single map, with few exceptions, has had an incredible amount of special and elite enemies, and they have been sensationally obnoxious. In the high rounds, you're only going to get a Zursa once every 5 rounds. The beginning of the match only starts with like 2 to 3 Ravagers, and starting at round 40, you do get a single special enemy in the form of a Doppleghast. Now, we'll talk about the believe me, we'll talk about the Doppleghast, but the balance of that, the fairness of these high rounds have been so much improved. On top of that, with the reduction of super sprinters, we don't have tack sprinting anymore, but our base speed is much faster and it is fairly noticeable. I was very worried that without tack sprinting that super sprinters would catch up to you. That did not seem to be the case here, and I'm thankful for that. Movement overall felt good. I've said in a couple videos that it seems like the hit speed or the hit range might be a little bit tweaked so it doesn't feel like you're getting hit by from all sides all the time. That could just be placebo because they reduced the super sprinters, and so you have a little bit more space and room to work with. So I don't know, I could be wrong there. And speaking of high rounds, there is a change that I'm really mixed on. They have substantially reduced the salvage gain. In Black Ops 6, where if you were just going by the salvage gain, you would earn your legendary rarity at around 24 to 26. Here, if you just do your raw salvage gain, you're getting a legendary gun after round 30. This does feel weird, but this reduced salvage rate also means that the mutant injection spam is all but destroyed. From my rough calculations, if salvage works the same way here as it does in the real game, you are not going to earn enough salvage to constantly buy mutant injections to get to high rounds. I know that's not always the case in Black Ops 6 either, but it's even harsher here. And by harsher, I mean you're earning like half or like a 1/3 as much salvage even into the 50s, 60s, and 100s. This adds an emphasis on your kill streaks and equipment, and it pairs so nicely with the max ammo change, where each piece of equipment feels way more valuable because it takes a lot of salvage to craft, which means it takes a long time to craft. And so yes, leveling up your base weapon feels a little bit worse, but with the mystery box changes and the wall buys, they are more incentivized. You're more incentivized to buy those if you want those higher rarity weapons. But if you want to stick with your loadout weapon, kind of as a balancing act, like, hey, you're going to get a guaranteed weapon, but it's going to take you a little bit longer to get legendary. I think I can live with that downside if it's worth it for the high rounds. And of course, we don't know if this is the way it's going to be in the full game. They could revert it, they could buff it, they could add the suppressor functionality back, which I imagine they are. Plus, we might have that Vulture Aid augment that gets you more salvage, so we'll see. But outside of the good / mixed things, we have a lot of negative things to talk about. Starting with the biggest negative, and that is there were no augments to play around with here. Of course, this is a delicate situation. We'll talk about like what a Zombies Beta really is and what it means later, but the fact that we really couldn't test out some of these old augments, the fact that we couldn't see what these weapons felt like with augments, the fact that we couldn't feel these high rounds with augments, I think was a big downside. Not only because we didn't get to play around with the mechanics, but it also paints a very disingenuous picture of how this game is going to play. Either way, whether you liked it or you didn't like it, it is going to change on launch when we have access to augments. I saw a lot of people, very strange to me, saying that they liked how restricted and how there was nothing here and it felt very bare bones, which if that's the case, that's perfectly fine. I'm not judging you for your opinion. But for those people, when the full game releases and we have everything on the crafting table, we have all the augments, it's going to feel a lot easier. Those people might be upset. And then the people who are like myself, who love the augments and love the crafting table and love these things, we kind of had a more stale impression. What I've seen a lot of people say, oh man, this is just Black Ops 6 all over again, because a lot of these game-changing augments weren't really there to showcase. And oh my goodness, how many times have you heard about the gun sucking when we don't really have all of the augments to really compare if they actually are weak? It just created a fogginess. Now I think this is good because that means there's still something to surprise us on the full launch and we can really dive into it, but it's still worth talking about. Especially some of the big augments like the Vulture Aid augment that everybody was excited for. There's a Vulture Aid augment that allows you to auto pick up plates and auto equip plates without the plating up animation. People are dying for that augment. I am dying for the turtle shell augment. Those could greatly change how high rounds play and how people feel about this game overall, and that just wasn't present. Staying on the topic of the feeling that, oh my goodness, people say that this is just Black Ops 6 over again, and big changes not being in here, there was no fade in from black to me when you started the game, which you said was going to be a thing. I couldn't really tell, it didn't stand out to me if there's any audio cue of the round changing with that damage progression. I don't know if that's a voice code, I don't know how that's going to look, but that really, in terms of what I saw, wasn't there. The Gobblegum crushing mechanic where you got points for Gobblegums would have been very beneficial, especially in the beta where we're low on points trying to pack a punch a lot of guns, and you've given us free Gobblegums so we could easily test that out, but we couldn't do that. The rarities didn't match the blog post, which could be intentional because of the reduced salvage rate. There's just a lot of weirdness going on. One of the biggest things is like sliding into zombies, knocking them over and dealing a little bit of damage by default. That's a huge different way of playing the game. You don't need PhD slider to do that anymore, and that just wasn't in the game. That's one of the biggest movement changes we have, and we didn't get to experience it. So of course you're going to get comments like, oh, it just felt like Black Ops 6 because the big changes that you had from Black Ops 6 aren't here. And before we get to the really big bad stuff, I want to talk about some miscellaneous things that I've experienced. We found out that you cannot armor plate while you're sliding. I don't know if that's intended, but it felt very janky, very wonky, and very bad. Sliding has this weird animation when you're trying to aim down sights because that's not by default anymore. It has this glitchy animation. The crafting table doesn't show you how much of an item you have until you have the maximum amount of that item. I think rapid fire and pack-a-punch don't seem to work together. I had rapid fire on a lot of my guns, and when I was testing those guns, it seems as though that rapid fire attachment was either taken away or the pack-a-punch was lowering the rate of fire for a bunch of weapons. I think that's incredibly bad, especially for how bad the weapons felt, and it definitely felt like a bug. The attachments in the gunsmith felt incredibly boring, and the suppressors no longer got you more salvage, which I definitely think is a huge negative. I think the gunsmith could be just as impactful as the augment system. I know that's crazy to say, I know that's a lot of work, and I doubt that we're ever going to see it, but if you want players to play around with the attachments more, we need some different stuff in here. We need barrels that do different damage to special and elite enemies. We need a rival to the suppressor that gets you an increased point gain per kill instead of increased salvage. We need a barrel that drops more power-ups. Maybe each of the barrels can drop, this barrel drops more max ammos, this barrel drops more insta-kills, this barrel drops more max armors or something. Again, probably not not going to happen, but the gunsmith it's felt boring for 5 years for zombies. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but there's a lot of potential there. And I have lost, I think, 3 total save games from phantom disconnects. I've saved and quit, I've gone to multiplayer, I've played another game with zombies, went back to my save game, and it's just gone. This absolutely needs to get worked out, especially with how amazing high rounds are here in Black Ops 7. Really hope that's an easy bug that they can figure out, because losing your save files is terrible. But now the 3 big bad things of Black Ops 7. Starting with the smallest, we have the return of the Doppleghast. And I just gotta say, why? Why are they here? Like, why can't we design a new enemy? We've been playing with them for the past year. We don't need to see them here again. I want to remind you, I think the balance of them is fantastic. I wouldn't even mind seeing them come in at round 30 instead of 40. And I wouldn't mind seeing super sprinters at 40 instead of 50, but that's neither here nor there. There is an emotional excitement when it comes to a new zombies map that you're going to get new wonder weapons and new special enemies and a new place to play on. The experience of each zombie map needs to be different. This is one of the biggest issues with modern zombies, and really Black Ops 6 is probably the worst about it, is that all of these maps have similar bosses to them, which makes their experiences less unique from the last. And worst of all, it retroactively makes other maps worse. The Amalgam was a fantastic boss for Terminus. It made sense story-wise, it made perfect sense why he would be there, but after the Amalgams came back on the Tomb and Citadel and a little bit on Shattered Veil, it's like, dang, now Amalgams just suck all around, and it makes Terminus worse because of it. It is okay to have your maps play differently, have a different sandbox and a different cast of characters on each map. It's okay. Worse than that, we saw a little glimpse of Uberklaus in some promotional video for Ashes of the Dam. This would be horrible. If he's part of the Easter egg, if it's a one-time thing, that is different. I personally don't mind the Mangler, the Amalgam on Shattered Veil. I think that's fine. I think it can even work pretty well with the story to make the universe feel all connected. But if the Uberklaus is going to be just another elite enemy like the Zursa, I am perpetually frustrated and confused of why we are so insistent on using these same bosses over and over and over and over again. It really does, at least emotionally, come off really awful and lazy, and it's exhausting from a player perspective too. Black Ops 6 Zombies has the most reused bosses and the most reused wonder weapons we've seen in Call of Duty Zombies history. That is single-handedly one of the biggest flaws of Black Ops 6, and we cannot have a repeat of this issue for Black Ops 7. And I hear you, what about the camo grind? What about all the special enemies you need to kill for the camo grind? If that is the one bottleneck, if that's the thing, if that's the one reason they have special enemies in here, it is much better, to me, in my eyes, to change the camo challenge than to make the game worse. At least in my opinion. Speaking of making the game worse, we need to have a serious conversation about damage scaling. I know I praised the crap out of these high rounds, but there is one final thing, well, 1.5 things that we need to talk about, and the first of which being damage scaling. With some great testing by TAC-M in my Discord, by the way, link in the description, and looking at our footage and just looking at a lot of people's footage, we saw that heavy and armored zombies will destroy your armor in like 2 or 3 hits on high rounds. Now, yes, absolutely, augments may help with this, but Treyarch needs to be so sensitive and so careful when balancing these things. Damage scaling, in my opinion, is going to be the #1 reason why players don't get to high rounds. And it's not because of a skill thing. In fact, that's the problem. It has nothing to do with skill. With super sprinters and 40 zombies on the map, you are going to get hit. Back before Black Ops 3, even when you had 24 zombies on the map and they weren't super sprinting, you were going to get hit at some point in time. Zombies is not a game where players can completely never get hit. And so when you have a system like armor and damage scaling that heavily punishes and permanently punishes you for something that you don't have full control of, that is the worst failure of game design you could ever make. A failure state, a punishment that is not the player's fault, is horrible game design. Now, a lot of people say we just need to get rid of armor, we need to get rid of damage scaling, we need to go back to 5 hit downs and this and that. I don't think we need to go that far. I wholeheartedly believe damage scaling can, if done correctly, be really balanced. There is a sweet spot where, yes, you can take a hit or two and then get back to training while still holding the player accountable to making sure they are training in a very strategic and intelligent way. And I think with super sprinters, counters being reduced as they are and dealing more damage, I think they're in a pretty decent spot. But the problem is, the more damage enemies do, the more armor gets taken off of you. And yes, we will have the ability to mitigate more damage and have durable plates because we can have 2 minor augments now. And I hate being like the stats guy on not having like a number to point to and be like, hey, zombies shouldn't ever deal more than this amount of damage. We will 100% figure that out when the game fully releases. But again, thanks to Tech M, he found out that tier 3 armor is going to be able to absorb just over 1,000 damage. And that is just straight up damage. But what he also found is that heavy and armored zombies will deal over 600 damage to your armor in the high rounds, which means that it's only going to take 2 hits from an armored or heavy zombie to destroy your armor. That is far too punishing. Again, I'll get exact numbers when the game fully releases, but that is way, way, way too much. Especially if our weapons are going to be as garbage as they were in the beta. Now, I have done some testing and some graphs, and they're not as bad as we all imagine. Obviously, with augments, it helps out a lot, especially with the 2 minor augments we're going to be able to get. Augments, attachments, they're 100% going to help, but they are still not where Black Ops 6 weapons are. I still want to see at least like a 10 to 15, maybe 20% increase in weapon strength across the board. Even with rapid fire and the best damage increasing augments that I could calculate, the best weapons in the game were only getting 80,000 DPS, which is about 20,000 DPS short of the best weapons of Black Ops 6. And this just compounds the armor problem because the way we get armor back is through killing zombies. And if the zombies are dealing a lot of damage to our armor and we're not able to get armor back in high rounds because our guns suck, that is a negative downward spiral that again is not the player's fault, which is the worst thing you could do in any video game. And I know that's a lot of negative, but I just want to remind people, we have basically fixed boss zombie spam. This is a fantastic positive. The reduction of super sprinters feels so good. There's a lot of good stuff here. This is just the next thing on the list that we need to tune. Again, I believe there's a balance with damage scaling. We just need to find it. Now, this next negative, I really don't want to talk about. I'm so sick of talking about this, but we got to talk about the HUD. Let's get the easy stuff out of the way. We need separate HUDs for the multiplayer and zombies because changing something in multiplayer meant that it changed in zombies. Changing something in zombies, like taking away your minimap, meant that when you switched over to multiplayer, you would also not have a minimap. That was fixed in Black Ops 6. We need that to return in Black Ops 7. Secondly, we cannot separate medals and notifications. This was possible in Black Ops 6 by setting your slider to 1, which would completely disable the medals, but it would still give you the notifications. The reason that we want notifications is we want to see when our gun level's up, we want to see when we get Gobblegums, we want to see when augment research is complete. There's a lot of stuff that we want to see with the notifications, and there's really no reason for them to be paired up with the absolutely ugly medals. I'm sorry if you love medals. I think they're terrible. I think they're just completely immersion breaking. I hate medals. Again, this was a functionality in Black Ops 6 and it needs to return in Black Ops 7. There's no reason for it not to. Players have also asked, and I agree, I would love to see a health bar setting where it's just the special enemies. I don't need to see how much health a zombie has. There's a lot of zombies. I get it. I'm killing them. But I do want to see how much health Zursa has. I think that's good information to know. And so if we're taking feedback, that would be a really big quality of life change. And I do believe that was possible in Cold War. And one of the biggest changes that I really need with the HUD, it's time. We need an ability to turn off the objective markers. Look, I get it. It's very useful. I do not want them to go away at all. I think they're so beneficial for the zombie mode. It gets players so invested into zombies. I love the objective markers. But if I, as a classic zombie enjoyer, want to figure out power and pack-a-punch myself, I should be able to have the option. And outside of that, even the noobiest of noob zombie player, once they've played a map 3, 4, 5 times, they know how to turn on power and pack-a-punch. They don't need an objective indicator on every single door. They don't need an objective indicator on the power switch that's very obviously placed. Once you know a map, you don't need the objectives anymore. I would love a simple setting to turn off those objective indicators. And also a toggle to turn off your Gobblegums from the HUD would be really good. Even when you have the no HUD setting turned on, you still have the Gobblegums, which is very weird. And I know a lot of people are talking about specifically the bottom right portion of the HUD. It feels very much like multiplayer, and I wholeheartedly agree. Part of me inside though though, I do like the style of this HUD. I do really like the futuristic tone, but it doesn't work for zombies. It doesn't work for zombies. It's really good for multiplayer, and I like it aesthetically, stylistically, just in a vacuum. But we should absolutely have a zombie-specific theme, especially because, as we've data mined, there are like 7 to 12 different zombie themes. Like, can we pick those for one of the default ones? I think this is going to be a non-issue come launch when we all pick our favorite themes. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but there are unique ones that we've never seen before, at least from what I've seen. So why not pick one of those as the default? But most importantly, this HUD talk is exhausting to me. I don't know about you. I turn off the settings I want to turn off, and I'm very happy with the HUD. I think the Black Ops 6 Zombies HUD is like friggin' perfect. It shows me all the information I want, none of the information that I don't want. I can customize it. I can do damage numbers when I'm testing stuff. I can turn them off when I'm not, and I can have that fun experience. So I thought we were done talking about the HUD, but people still want to talk about the HUD, and I think the final nail in the coffin that's going to get everybody on board with all of these amazing HUD settings, because they are amazing. It's amazing we have these options in the first place. We absolutely need some sort of onboarding process, some sort of forced menu pop-up when we first start a game of zombies or before we go into zombies, walking you through each of these HUD elements and asking players if they want them to keep them on. Do you like medals? You can turn off medals. Do you like these health bars? You can turn them off. Do you like the damage numbers? You can turn them off. Do you want to have a notification or an orange indicator as you're doing the main quest? Or do you want to have a more immersive experience and learn everything on your own? Cool, well then you can turn off these objective markers. If we had that, you would then communicate to the player that yes, these HUD options are options in the first place, and hopefully people would actually pick the thing that they want to do. It is crazy that after all year of Black Ops 6, we're still getting complaints that, oh man, these damage stuff, you could turn most of these things off, and in the gameplay behind you, I think it looks pretty good. Especially once we get the HUD themes to make the bottom right a little bit more stylistic, I think it's gonna be great. Now, something that's not specific to the Zombies beta that I want to talk about, I want to talk about the early game vulnerability. As somebody who does genuinely understand and appreciate the modern mechanics, mostly, I still think the early game is just too easy. There is something so simple about spawning in with nothing. Now, I also understand spawning in with whatever weapon you want is a good thing, so I actually really like that. But in my opinion, there's no need for us to spawn in with equipment. We have equipment in the crafting table. We have equipment being dropped by zombies left and right. There is no need to spawn in with your preferred equipment. If you need a specific piece of equipment on spawn, then you might be doing something wrong. I don't know. And if you need it for an Easter egg step, well, you can use the crafting table to do so. I am also very much opposed to spawning in with 3 Gobblegums. Ever since they made that change back in Black Ops 6, do you remember in Black Ops 6 you didn't spawn in with any Gobblegums? You had to get them from the Gobblegum machine? Ever since we spawned in with 3 Gobblegums, I have used Gobblegum substantially less. I get it from a strategic standpoint. You can plan your route a little bit better. You can do your Easter eggs a little bit faster. I'm sure speedrunners and Easter egg guys love it, but they also made a big change with the Gobblegum machine where you can spin it infinitely every round with a short 10-second cooldown. So if you wanted 3 specific Gobblegums, there's a way for you to do it. The reason I liked it being random is that a lot of the time, I don't really care what Gobblegum I start with. And so how I play that match might have been dependent upon the random Gobblegum that I got out of the Gobblegum machine first. I don't know if that's a good explanation, but I feel like I'm more restricted with the fact that you're giving me 3 Gobblegums, because now if I want a different Gobblegum, like I thought I was going to use this, but I actually don't want to use this, but now I want to change Gobblegum, now I'm stuck. Now I have to use Gobblegum in order to change out one of those Gobblegums. Does that make sense? Am I crazy here? Do you guys feel the same way? I get why they did it. It's fine if they keep it, but I just don't like. But if we're talking early game vulnerability and building yourself up, I would love to see one of 2 changes. One, I would love it, like I said earlier, if we didn't spawn in with armor, because they're at the same wall by now. I think people are used to buying armor in modern zombies now. I think that's a mechanic that's not hidden anymore. You don't need to remind people about it because they can see it on the wall. Spawning in with no armor and 150 health would mean that we are still a 5 hit down from spawn. I think that is incredibly fair, incredibly generous, especially if tier 1 armor is close by and it's only like 1,000 points or something. Now, if you don't want to do that, if you like players having armor on spawn because it tells them, hey, there is armor in the game, that's fine. But what I would like to see as a compromise, if by default we only had 100 health, that would reduce the amount of hits you could take with that tier 1 armor. It would make you more vulnerable in the early game, and it would put more value to Juggernaut. Personally, I just feel like the first 15 to 20 to even 25 rounds of this game are a little bit too autopilot-y for me. I know there's a lot lot of players who do struggle with zombies, so I don't want to discount their experience, but I think that would be just enough difficulty to hold people a little bit more accountable while not completely destroying the new zombie players. And also emphasizing, hey, you should buy tier 1 armor now, hey, you should buy Jug now. But that's just my wish list. And I want to end this video with the 2 biggest things that I think they need to take away from this beta. The biggest, in my opinion, the biggest thing is damage scaling. There is an amazing balance of high rounds, and with that amazing balance, more and more players are going to reach those high rounds, but they are going to be quickly discouraged if their armor gets wrecked in 2 hits. Yes, augments will help, but like I said before, damage or permanently punishing the player for something that's outside of their control is a big turnoff. And the same goes for Zursa. If the Zursa's damage is way out there, then people are going to get discouraged and just not want a high round ever. Remember, a lot of the time with super sprinters and 40+ zombies, damage is unavoidable. And then finally with the HUD, I think the biggest thing would be an onboarding message walking players through. Do you want this turned on? Do you want this turned off? Do you like this? Do you like that? We need separation of medals and notifications, and we need some way, it's time, Treyarch, it's time, a way to turn off those orange indicators. I don't need to be told how to pack a punch on Liberty Falls. I've played it for hundreds of hours. And a setting where you can turn off the zombie health bars but turn on the special enemy health bars would be great. And having the zombie default HUD be different than the multiplayer HUD will do a lot for community sentiment, as strange as it may seem. I am so excited for Black Ops 7. Between the augment changes to the changes that we strangely didn't see in this beta, I think this could be one of the best zombie games we've had in the modern systems, and maybe if done right, it could be one of the best of all time. And if you're interested in Black Ops 7 content, you want to see how high rounds actually play live in game, the LMG we had in the beta had a secret pack-a-punch effect that made it incredibly viable for high rounds. Be sure to check out that video here and stay beautiful.